I don't want to do MD, because at that time I thought that doing MD was to convert your mind into a modern scientific thinking and you lose the roots of Ayurveda. So they were trying to do a story on Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is just beginning to get recognized in the US, and many people were concerned that people are, misinformed. I thought my life is done. In fact, again I told my father, I think this is a wrong decision. This looks to be very primitive and I don't know if I can really contribute something.
Namaste, welcome to Great Vaidyas. Today we have Dr. P. Manohar, Research Director, Acharya, Amida School of Ayurveda here with us. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
So today we would like to know about how you came to this career of Ayurveda, and as well as what are the contributions you are given to the Ayurveda. So first of all, I would like to know about from which background you came to here.
Yes, if you ask why I came to Ayurveda, I would say it's more destiny than choice. Because when I completed my matriculation, I was all set to join modern medicine. And suddenly my father broke this news to me, saying that you have to join for Ayurveda. So initially I refused. I tried to fight, but he was insistent. And at that time, Coimbatore Ayurvedic pharmacy, Dr. P.R. Krishna Kumar, he just passed away last year. He was a mentor for many of the Ayurveda physicians of that generation. So he had envisioned a new system of teaching, a Gurukula style teaching. And at that time, even people like me, our first choice was to go for modern medicine. Sure. So he wanted to create a group of students and graduates from Ayurveda who will choose Ayurveda as the first choice. So his concept was catch them young. So after SSLC, this course was 7.5 years, because he didn't want the students to get a chance to even try for modern medicine. So at SSLC level, they are admitted into the college. 2 years we had what is called as pre-Ayurveda course, which was equivalent to the pre-degree program which people do for medicine. So we needed that qualification also. But after pre-Ayurveda, we go directly into the BAMS course. And actually the turning point, how I took a decision to join this course, was not because I was inspired by Ayurveda, frankly. My father told me, because I was resisting his suggestions. So he told me, please go to the college and have a look and then take a decision. So I went, and this college is actually set up in a very natural, beautiful surroundings at the foothills of Anakatti mountains, near the border of Coimbatore and Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Coimbatore. So frankly, I must say that when I stepped into that campus, I felt I was completely enchanted by that atmosphere. Beautiful, hut-like buildings and students in traditional dress. In fact, when I reached there, I saw a group of students practicing kalari. The surroundings were so beautiful because, it's a thick forest, and you could see peacocks and animals and, very nice stream flowing there. So I thought I never had got exposure, because I lived in a city in Calicut at that time and very close to the medical college. So when I suddenly saw this atmosphere, so I must say that it was nature's own call. It was nature's beckoning. I was attracted by nature, and later I realized that Ayurveda is that inherent knowledge of life that is in nature itself. So these are the circumstances, and that's why I say it's destiny more than choice. I was actually led into taking this decision.
So we are also privileged to have you as a destiny called you and you become a renowned Ayurveda physician, as well as how you continued this as a career, sir, after your studies.
I must say that, but it was not a very easy path to move on. So actually I was exposed to a lot of scientific thinking, and we lived in a colony where most of our neighbors were medical doctors or scientists. So I had been very much influenced by the scientific way of thinking. In fact, my closest neighbor was a activist of Shastra Sahitya Parishad, and so this is what we all learned, growing up. So after that initial enchantment with the natural surroundings and that way of life, when we started the course and I first got introduced to some Ayurvedic concepts, I was completely shocked. Because when I heard Vata, Pitta, Kapha and translations, wind, flame, bile, I thought my life is done. In fact, again I told my father, I think this is a wrong decision. This looks to be very primitive and I don't know if I can really contribute something. And this developed into a crisis in the first 2 years. Of course, I was very studious. I got the highest marks and all that. So I didn't neglect my studies, but this confusion was there. And then my father told me that if it is so difficult for you, then you come back one day. So I was in a rebellious mood. So when he suddenly told me you can come back, I was not in a frame of mind to accept, because somehow the momentum was that I must oppose my father. So when he said, okay, come back, I said, no, I will not. And for some time I regretted having told that, but then at that moment, I was maybe childish, 16, 17 years at that age. I took a decision that I will try to disprove Ayurveda, and maybe this course should be stopped.
Okay.
So the goal of my life is to show that Ayurveda is not worth the trouble. It is not scientific. So I must say that it is like a lover's quarrel. That's how my engagement with Ayurveda started. In the beginning, I was not convinced, and in fact, I was trying to work against Ayurveda. And that's the moment I decided that I should become a researcher and not a practitioner or a teacher. So that moment in the pre-Ayurveda course where I had this conflict and encounter with my father, that was the time my career as a researcher was actually decided.
Okay, sir. Till today, the students have the same feeling. So because we are coming from a physics chemistry background,
yes,
and when we are purposefully or sometimes already, we know that almost all the students wanted to become a modern doctor, but somehow we are ending up in Ayurveda, and this dilemma always it is there, till now it's continuing, that the Sanskrit knowledge. How your Sanskrit knowledge helped in the education, sir?
Yeah, there are certain things, because as Sanskrit as a language, I was right from the beginning, fascinated. Because language and Ayurveda was two different things. In fact, I was also very much drawn to the spiritual aspects of Ayurveda, much more than its medical part. I was not convinced about the medical aspects of Ayurveda because of the science approach, but the spiritual worldview and the profundity of the Sanskrit language attracted me a lot. I did not have much exposure to Sanskrit before I joined Ayurveda, but I took a lot of effort. We had 4 papers in Sanskrit, including study of Kavyas, Siddhanta Kaumuti, grammatical, even Panini's Ashtadhyayi we had to study to some extent, plus the Vaisheshika Darshana. So that gave me a spiritual worldview. And one thing I did in Sanskrit was, at that time, which I found absolutely illogical, that students were studying Sanskrit but answering the exams in English.
Okay.
So I said, I will not do that. If it is Sanskrit, then I will write in Sanskrit itself. And I think when I look back, these 2 or 3 decisions, I think, completely shaped the way I chose and developed my career. I also decided that I will not read from any English translation, the classical texts, I will read only the original Sanskrit, even if it is difficult, even the commentaries. So I took that habit. Now, looking back, I think this was a very crucial decision, because if at all, whatever little I have been able to contribute to this field from the perspective of Ayurveda, it has come from this engagement with Sanskrit, with the darshanas, because I believe these are two missing links in today's education. One is good grounding in Sanskrit, but Sanskrit is a language. It's the philosophy of Ayurveda that makes it unique, and unless you have a good acquaintance with the darshanas, you will not get the background of the Ayurvedic theoretical foundations. Coming from basic principles, I'm sure you would agree with that.
So I'm sure that, sir, because of that paved the interest of research in you, sir, because you know the knowledge of darshana along with Sanskrit help you to become a researcher, because always research says that we are researching it. Already Ayurveda knowledge is there, but this fundamental knowledge of philosophy helps you to become
there I have also a very interesting observation, is that of course very early I realized that the darshanas are not just philosophy, but they represent the classical method of research. Because if you look at Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa and Vedanta, they represent that whole process of evolution of knowledge. Nyaya is the beginning, Nayati iti Nyaya. So there it is a research methodology actually. And then the subjective universe through Vaisheshika, where you look at all the differences. In Sankhya, where you count them and look at the similarities. And from yoga, your knowledge becomes subjective. You're going deeper to your own inner self. And then through Mimamsa, you do all the karmas that is to purify your mind. And in Vedanta, you get the jnana. So this study of darshanas gave me the impression that Ayurveda is a complete knowledge system. So the first, I think what helped me was that inquisitiveness, which I got from modern science, questioning and all that. The second is Sanskrit, which refines your personality, gives you that fineness, and then the darshanas. These three things together, I think, helped me to become a researcher with a more balanced up. Because today, when you say research in Ayurveda, everybody is trying to prove Ayurveda through modern only modern parameters. But because of this exposure, I think I realized right from the beginning that we need a unique approach for research in Ayurveda also. We cannot blindly apply modern research methodologies. And by deeper study of Sanskrit and the darshanas, we can develop an Ayurvedic approach to doing research.
Yes, sir. So by custom, sir, after post-graduation, we always choose the career as a teacher or as a professor in a college. So why that? What made you to become a researcher, sir?
Yes, actually when I finished my course, I decided, because that time over the BAMS course also I had, when I studied anatomy again I had a lot of confusion because modern anatomy and physiology are so developed and Ayurveda didn't seem to match, so I got again disillusioned. So 2 or 3 times I felt like leaving the course, but I must say in Coimbatore Ayurveda College we had excellent teachers and because of their persistence. But after the course, when many of my friends went for MD, I thought I will not do MD. In fact, I didn't want to do MD. I got an offer. Once I made a talk in Calicut during a World Congress, and Professor R.H. Singh, he even now tells that. He called me and said, I'm very impressed. We would be very happy to have you in BHU to do MD. Then I told him I have better things to do. So I don't want to do MD. Because at that time I thought that doing MD was to convert your mind into a modern scientific thinking and you lose the roots of Ayurveda. So I thought I didn't want to lose. So what I did was I was trying to spend time with traditional Vaidyas. So after my course in Coimbatore, there was a program called LSPSS, Lok Swasthya Parampara Samvardhan Samiti, which was looking at the traditional knowledge and how to strengthen that to make India a self-reliant healthcare system. So I got a fellowship which gave me freedom to move around. So I was working with, especially in Kerala, the Ashtavaidyas, Vishavaidyas, Balavaidyas, many old people were there. So I was going one after them, and at that time a Japanese friend of mine came to India. He was also interested in documenting these traditions, and he provided camera, many facilities. So we created video archiving, and this is still available. This program was called Padam, Program for Archiving and Documenting Ayurvedic Medicine, and this was actually the first exposure, because in the college clinical training in that times had limited scope.
Yeah.
But when I saw these Ashtavaidyas and all these traditional Vaidyas of Kerala in actual action, that is when I realized that Ayurveda as a clinical science is still alive. And so nearly about 10 years after my BAMS, I spent time exploring, because I wanted to learn more. I didn't want to settle down for a job. I was not even married at that time.
Okay.
I thought I will never get married, but somehow it happened later. But then I realized that if I want to develop a career in research, then MD is necessary.
Yes, sir.
So that is the time when my father passed away. I got an offer in Koppa. They were setting up a research center. So the president of that organization, I went there. At that time, one of my friends referred me there. He said, you can be working there and also do your PG. So after some initial discussions, I was offered to work there as research coordinator, and at that time I could also complete my post-graduation. So when I got a chance to do both research and also pursue my PG studies at that time, and that place was also very beautiful.
Yeah.
Sringeri, very similar to the atmosphere of our Coimbatore Ayurveda College. So I used to frequently go to Sringeri and spend time there. Yes, so that spiritual, that whole atmosphere. So I must say that way I was lucky in terms of the atmosphere, where I learnt both UG and PG, very spiritual and in the lap of nature.
Yes, so like we used to say, that Logaha Purusha Samhita. So we are the miniatures of the universe.
Of the whole universe. So
yes, sir. So like that, sir. Now you already told that you are interested in research, and we all know that you are a renowned physician as well as a pioneer among the Ayurveda researchers in India. So what are the contributions or what are the achievements you got from this, or what you can provide to them?
So I can say that, primarily I would still say that my mind, from that doubts that started when I was a student, that has been my driving force. I really wanted to be convinced myself and also convince people outside the field, the skeptics.
Yeah.
That was a sensitive platform on which I have been working. So then I must say that experiencing the older clinicians, the traditional Vaidyas, gave me a little bit of conviction. But I was really looking for an acid test. And if you were to ask what was one single contribution which I consider, because of course I don't want to go into too many elaborate things, but if I look at the goal that I set at the beginning of my career, there are at least two fulfilling moments where I was really able to test Ayurveda very rigorously. So one big chance I got was that when I was called back to AVP in Coimbatore, where Krishna Kumarji at that time had connections with the National Institutes of Health USA, and we were on the verge of getting a project to scientifically evaluate Ayurveda. And the interesting thing is that we would have from the modern science one of the most leading universities in the world, UCLA, University of Washington, Seattle, and also an eminent rheumatologist. So I was asked to come to Coimbatore and take lead of this project. So this was, I think, a very important and fulfilling moment in my career, because right from the beginning I had realized that Ayurveda, we need to do research, but simply testing Ayurveda using modern parameters is not enough. We need to have an adapted protocol. And we need the best of the scientists and the best of the Ayurveda physicians to actually come together to do this. And this project exactly, created such an opportunity. So from the modern side, we had a very eminent top rheumatologist from UCLA, master of the American College of Rheumatology, Dr. Daniel First.
Yeah.
And AVP itself was, a very well-known, renowned institution for Ayurveda with Dr. Ravindran, very experienced clinician. So we had this setup, and my goal was to bridge the gap. And in this study, we were able to do one key thing which was never done before, that we have the most rigorous scientific protocols, but also follow the Ayurveda approach, individualized approach. Usually in a clinical trial, one medicine is tested, but in this trial we tested the Ayurvedic Yukti, the protocol. So each patient would get different treatments, and we could also modify the treatment according to response. This was allowed, and we could also extend the duration of the study to accommodate the Ayurvedic understanding of how long the treatment would. So normally it is 6 months, but our study was extended for 9 months because we felt that Ayurveda needs a little bit more time. And for the first time, this study revealed that Ayurveda is perhaps even more effective than standard of care in management of rheumatoid arthritis, or at least equivalent, because with fewer side effects, it was showing the same effect of methotrexate. And from 6 to 9 months, the improvement in Ayurveda was very statistically significant. This has been published also in the #1 journal of rheumatology in the world. First Ayurveda paper to get published with a high impact factor, and also in JCR 2 publications came. Then the key thing here, what I think was the most important outcome was, it's when we have opposition, it's easy for us to congratulate ourselves, but it is only when people from the opposing group, when we are able to convince them, then only there is a victory. So we had a very unique experience here in this study. Dr. Edzard Ernst, he is a professor of complementary and alternative medicine in Europe, the first professor. He is a vehement critic of anything traditional, complementary, alternative. He has never said anything positive about. In fact, he says that this whole complementary alternative medicine is a waste, we should not spend money on it. But when our paper was published, he noticed it because it came in Annals of Rheumatic Diseases, which is #1 journal. And he approached us telling, I want to write a commentary on your paper. We thought he is going to attack again as usual. But we were surprised when for the first and last time in his life, he wrote something positive about Ayurveda. So he wrote a commentary in which he recommended our study as a blueprint for future studies on complementary alternative medicine. So what I realized at that time was that healthy criticism, skepticism, and if we also take up the challenge, Ayurveda can stand the test, the most stringent test. So that was a wow moment in my life when Edzard Ernst wrote this commentary. So we have got the most vehement critic to tell something positive. To have those who are supporting you tell you something positive is very easy. And another important outcome of this study was that at that time in Europe, they were trying to suppress Ayurveda using a certain directive called the THMPD directive, where they were trying to put more constraints and restrictions on the availability of Ayurvedic medicines or medicinal plants. But at that time, the European Society of Integrative Medicine chose our study for the Excellence in Integrative Medicine Research Award. And the first time in Europe, Ayurveda was recognized, through an award on integrative medicine platform. And there was just one more thing, because for the first time in the annual meeting of the American College of Rheumatology, our study was presented and discussed.
Okay, sir. So that became the flag hoster of the integrative medicine. So now itself that,
yes,
because we are now moving on to the integrative medicine.
True.
So definitely that
this study actually
the,
created a very strong platform,
Yes.
and so for me it was a fulfillment, and I think when I look back, that's the most fulfilling moment where I was able to realize my desire to test Ayurveda. And so I tell actually that I tried to disprove Ayurveda and I failed.
Yes, sir.
So there's actually one more experience when it comes to this, reflecting on how Ayurveda could be tested. So this is an initiative of the Public Broadcasting Service in the US, which is a very prestigious channel there, which covers, topics of public interest and where some controversial issues are discussed, and they give authentic coverage. So this PBS channel came with a very eminent investigative journalist, Tom Reed. So he's well-known journalist working for the Washington Post in the US. So he has covered many interesting topics earlier. So they were trying to do a story on Ayurveda because Ayurveda is just beginning to get recognized in the US, and many people were concerned that people are, misinformed. So the goal of their documentary was to show what is the scope of Ayurveda, whether it is, a worthwhile knowledge or not. So he had come to India, approached many institutions, and somehow came to AVP also through a contact of mine. And when they came, they said, we want to do a story on Ayurveda, but it's not going to be the usual kind of interviews where we ask some questions and, we want to do a real live story. So he was an investigative journalist, Tom Reed. So he said, I'm going to subject myself to your treatment. We'll pay all the cost for this. And if I get better, then I will say something positive about Ayurveda. If I don't get better, then we will announce to the US public that Ayurveda is no use. So are you willing to take this challenge? So I was a bit taken aback at that time, but deep inside I felt that urge. It's a good opportunity to test Ayurveda. Let's see. So I spoke to our medical director, Dr. Ravindran. So he asked me, tell me what is the problem. So he had actually a completely frozen shoulder. It's not just frozen shoulder, it's complete damage to the shoulder joint because he had following an injury while he was in the army. And his shoulder has gone to sleep for 25 years. Modern doctors said prosthetic surgery, but that involved some risks, so he had decided not to do it. He cannot lift his arm. So he said that if you can help me with this, then I will. So then I asked him, are you out of your mind? 25 years, what modern medicine could not fix up, you want Ayurveda to cure in a few days? And then we asked him how much time he has. He has only 12 to 14 days. Okay. So something that is troubling him for 25 years, which in modern medicine requires a very complicated surgery. We asked him whether it is fair for him to even challenge Ayurveda to cure it in 12 days. Okay. So he said, no, I understand. I am not expecting a complete cure. I just want enough proof to be convinced that Ayurveda works. So then we discussed, and Dr. Ravindran has such faith in Ayurveda. He said, let's take it up. We will show him what Ayurveda can do. And we started. So the whole documentary was the actual treatment. Nothing was faked up. It was really what was happening day by day, and he would give his experience. And to cut a long story short, at the end of the treatment, for the first time in his life, in 25 years, he was able to comb his hair. Okay. So he did not get completely cured, but tremendous improvement in mobility of his joints. And then he stopped the treatment. We had also told him, unless you follow it up for months and repeat for a few years, we cannot bring back and stabilize the function. But he said, at this age, I am not interested. But in that documentary, he confesses that Ayurveda is up to something. I am convinced. So these two moments. One is an investigative journalism and the other through a full-fledged clinical trial. I was absolutely thrilled. It was at those moments that I realized my father had told me that at that time Ayurveda was hardly known. He said there will be a time when Ayurveda will be recognized globally and you will travel to many countries. That was almost prophetic because through all these experiences I found that I had brought myself onto a global platform.
Yes, yes.
And perhaps I wouldn't have got these opportunities to work with NIH, later with WHO, which even maybe allopathic doctors are not able to get that kind of an exposure. So sometimes I believe and think that it was actually my father's vision, and that I accepted it. That gave me this beautiful experience of living and learning Ayurveda, and also getting these two opportunities to test it and then really get the proof that it works.
Yes, sir. So we all know that you had some success stories in the integrative medicine. So how can you please narrate how your approach is and how it helps in the future generations? So how we can help them?
Yeah, because right from the beginning, I think it is probably because I was fascinated by modern science and modern medicine, and I continue to be fascinated. I felt it's not healthy to have a conflict between different medical systems. Modern medicine is equally relevant in the areas where it is strong. The only problem is that it does not recognize the validity of other systems. And that is that space of integrative medicine that is required. Unfortunately, in India, what we have is not integrative medicine, it is pluralism. So I got introduced to integrative medicine through the studies and also on global platforms. I got opportunity to attend many fora on integrative medicine, and I realized that this vision is emerging from the West. So there is a Society for Integrative Medicine in the US, and they conducted conferences for which I got the opportunity to become also part of the organizing committee, as well as make presentations in collaboration with other researchers, and many of them are modern doctors. So this was a very wonderful experience. On that global platform, it has not happened in India, unfortunately. In India, our country is unique because it recognizes different medical systems legally, but it doesn't allow them to cooperate. Whereas in the West, even though individually all systems are not recognized, there is more effort to integrate. So it was only due to the exposure to the Western world that I understood that integrative medicine is a possibility. There are limitations, and it was these global platforms, integrative medicine platforms, that helped me to understand, especially in the field of integrative oncology. Just recently I got a scholarship from Society of Integrative Oncology, honorary membership, and also an opportunity to work with National Institutes of Health, National Cancer Institute. And together many of collaborators together, a white paper has been published, again also in a #1 journal, cancer journal, a cancer journal for the clinicians, which has an impact factor of 508, and it's #1 journal in cancer research. So what I have realized here is that India should actually become the model, because in the West, while they want integration to happen, they don't have traditional medicines in their full capacity. In India, we have everything. We have also Ayurveda, we have also modern medicine, we have also other systems. So it is high time, and I am very happy I was also part of the Niti Aayog initiative for One Health, One Nation, One Health. And there is a big effort now to develop integrative medicine in India, also with the NHSRC, and together the foundation has been laid now, including introducing Ayurveda 2 modern medical students.
Yes.
So recently, as part of these initiatives, it has happened. So I think we have to look forward to India taking the lead in the development of integrative medicine. So from my experience, to summarize, it was my exposure to the other world, the Western world, the outside India, that made me realize the scope of integrative medicine. But the paradox is that India is the best place to nurture this. We have the ingredients, but we are not. We are not actually. We have to actually nurture it and develop it. So that's how the future looks.
Future looks for integrative medicine.
Yes.
So next, we are coming into our session, sir. So what is, as per your experiences in the globally you are a well-renowned physician of Ayurveda. So how the students outside India how we can help them, or how we can help them to learn Ayurveda in better way?
Yeah, I've been surprised when I went outside to teach, or when students have come from outside world. I found that they come from all walks of life. They are not just medical doctors, but they also include medical doctors. And I have seen many medical doctors who have stopped the medical course because they get disillusioned with the modern medicine focus exclusively on curative medicine. For example, in the United States, it is accepted that the third leading cause of death is medical profession itself, medical error. So a lot of medical doctors, as well as people from other disciplines, even the general public, are looking for a more comprehensive view of health, which is going beyond medical perspective, which takes the whole human life in its totality. And that is where I think Ayurveda has the greatest potential. Because if you look at all other medical systems in the world, they are called as medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine, traditional European medicine, the Chinese, Japanese medicine, everything is medicine. Ayurveda alone, even today, I am very happy that we have not converted Ayurveda to traditional Indian medicine, like TCM, TIM. We still call it as Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is a knowledge of life. So looking at life in totality, this I think is what people are getting attracted when they come, especially self-discovery, the concept of Prakriti in Ayurveda, where each individual can understand. And there is one point I'd like to make here, which I am repeating in many fora also, is when we were students, we were told, the WHO slogan, health for all by 2000 AD. I was studying Ayurveda in the 80s and 90s. So by 2000, everybody would be healthy. WHO will give health for all. But around 2000, AIDS came. And the whole world was shattered. And now WHO has changed its perspective to universal health care. We cannot give health to everybody, because health is not something which can be put into a bottle and distributed. So now they are saying, let us give health care for all. Access to health care. But then came the COVID. And the countries with access to best health care have suffered the most. Even now, the United States has nearly 7 lakh cases per day. In France, more than 2 lakhs. In UK also. So, countries with access to health care are crumbling under the impact of this pandemic. So, this is where I think Ayurveda comes for the future. Because Ayurveda says it is health intelligence for all. We have to awaken the health intelligence, which Ayurveda calls as prajna. So unless individuals become self-responsible for their health, we cannot achieve this goal. So I think the slogan of Ayurveda for the world is health intelligence for all, not health for all or universal health care, but health intelligence for all. This I think is the global message of Ayurveda. And this is where I think, that is why not only medical doctors, but the entire humanity is getting interested. The cross-section of people who come to study Ayurveda are people who want to evolve. Because health intelligence is for everybody, not just medical knowledge is only for doctors, but health intelligence is for everybody. And that is why Vagbhada also says, Ayu kame manena dharmartha sukha sadhanam, Ayurveda upadesheshu vidhaya par. So anybody who wants Ayu for Dharmartha Sukha Sadhana, they should study Ayurveda.
Yes, we should identify the cause and we should rectify it. So actually
Yes.
Ayurveda also says the same.
Yes, so it is a life transforming knowledge.
Yes.
So anybody in the world should study it. Some of them may become medical doctors, but all others should study it for their own
Yes,
health,
yes.
for their own wellness,
Yes,
and
sir.
also to help others to achieve a healthy way of life.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir, for sparing your valuable time with us. So we are praying all the endeavors will be fruitful. Sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a nice experience having this conversation with you. And I'm very impressed with this initiative of Satva TV. I think it is a very commendable effort to bring the knowledge of Ayurveda to the larger public, especially on a global platform. And it's very important. The knowledge of Ayurveda is, preserved through many individuals who have, worked throughout their life in different ways and from different backgrounds. So I think Satva TV is doing a really commendable work by bringing all these individuals and the institutions that they represent together on a common platform, and especially in the global level when people are looking for authentic information on Ayurveda. I think such resources are extremely valuable. So I would like to also congratulate Satva TV for their great efforts, and thank you once again.
Thanks.
Namaste.